Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our working session for Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. Discussion to include physician engagement program, contract and gun marksmanship road, club surplus land purchasing, animal intake update, and 400 block redevelopment update. At this time, we'll start with physician engagement program. Angela, thank you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, City Council. I actually have Lindsay from our insurance broker, USI, here joining us virtually, and she is going to walk us through a brief presentation about implementing a wellness program here at the city to help incentivize employees to attend their annual healthcare visits. Lindsay, can you hear us? Uh-oh.
She needs some sound.
No sound. Lindsay, will you try talking again? Hold on, we have you muted. How about now, Lindsay? Will you try talking, Linz?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can hear you now. Good, I was
Okay,
not
I'm
about to go through this
I'm gonna go ahead and
presentation
share my
myself.
screen.
2 cans and a string works so well.
Coming through okay?
Yes,
Yep.
I'll let you go ahead, Linz, thanks.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks for having me this evening. Lindsay Suopaya, I am the consultant for the City of Hibbing, and am today talking population health management and what we can do at the City of Hibbing in terms of incentivizing our members to simply go and get their annual physical. I want to talk today about just why that concept matters, why we care about the health and the well-being of our population, and then of course dive into the details on how we can implement a program at the City of Hibbing. So first and foremost, we care about this topic because truly the health of our members matters. And we know that if our members are engaging proactively in their health, by both making healthy lifestyle choices and also being engaged with a physician on a regular basis, our members will live a longer and a more fulfilled life. And that has a direct correlation to our health insurance plan, both medical and pharmacy. The City of Hibbing now has a self-insured health insurance plan where they are truly paying the cost of any of the claims of any of our members. So control of that claims expenditure is why there's that full circle effect. And it's really twofold. Again, health and well-being of our members equals productivity and happiness, right? But there's also a cost implication to the City of Hibbing, which trickles down to a cost that our members pay to participate in the health insurance plan. And all of that really hinges on developing a strategy to promote engagement. And at USI, we really think that what moves the needle in terms of engagement is getting folks in and having a regular visit with their primary care physician. Easier said than done, right? We all know that we can do that, right? A lot of us even realize that that's a service that is provided by our health insurance plan at no cost to us, but we still need that little bit of a nudge. So what can the city do? One, of course, communicate and encourage our members to go get that annual physical, but also provide a financial incentive to do so. When we look at our engagement, we see the numbers. So we know nationally, 70% of the US population does not have an active primary care physician. And again, promoting that relationship with a primary care physician has a direct correlation on your claims expenditure. It's gonna lower interactions with a care provider of any kind. It's gonna lower emergency room visits, and it's gonna lower readmission rates when we have to be admitted into the hospital. And of course, on a more macro level scale, if we have someone engaging care physician on an annual and regular basis, we know that we're going to promote early detection of potential high-cost claims. And what I mean by that is someone getting a regular physical is going to be triggered by their by their primary care physician to have services done like colonoscopies, mammograms, and having those services done on a regular basis, right, in tune with your age and gender, of course, is gonna catch things at an earlier stage. So if I'm someone who has breast cancer, maybe I'm catching that in a stage 0 or a stage 1, rather than it being surprised by it down the road and in an unfortunate stage 4 or stage 5. The City of Hibbing's data, again, is line of sight. We know this. Only 42% of the members that are enrolled in the City of Hibbing's health plan have received an annual physical in the last 12 months. So there's certainly an opportunity here to get, that other 58% of our adult members to get in and get an annual physical. We've already got 5 members who are addressing kidney disease concerns, over 100 members with at least early risk factors of heart disease, and then 19 members with a type 2 diabetes diagnosis, and 18 more who are pre-diabetic. So again, an opportunity, right, to get these folks in and engaged with their primary care physician. And keep in mind, this is only what we know. We also know that there's people who have not been to the doctor, and therefore we don't know what they're potentially dealing with. They don't know what they're potentially dealing with. And that's really the target or the baseline for any program that we would deploy. I touched on this a little bit already, just anecdotally, but to provide some actual evidence or data around this program, here's the stats. So there's 4 charts on this screen. We're talking about real examples of how a primary care physician engagement program can impact your actual claims dollars. Inpatient admittances, okay, we've got a population of folks who have seen their primary care physician in the blue line, and those who haven't in the orange. Length of hospital stay, right, improves if you're engaged with a primary care physician. Emergency room visits, and then those readmission rates are all lower when you've got a relationship with a primary care provider and you've got an option and you're engaged with your health on a more proactive basis. A bit heavy, but further, I touched on cancer diagnoses. This affects all of us, right, in some way, shape, or form. But for the city, we're talking about not only the cost, right, of taking on a cancer case in our claims data, but of course the well-being and the life, frankly, of some of our members. This slide shows you breast cancer, just as the example. The cost associated with a breast cancer diagnosis, depending on if it's caught in a stage 0 through 4. And then as you go across, you can see that 5-year survival rate. And of course, as this is caught in a later stage, that survival rate unfortunately decreases dramatically, and it also has very high cost implications. So this is where the opportunity is, right? Let's catch these things going on in a stage 0 or 1, rather than down here in a stage 3 or 4. And then lastly, that claims trend. So I mentioned this a couple times. City of Hibbing is now a self-funded health plan employer. You pay the actual claims of your members. And we know that there's going to be ebbs and flows each year, right? But over the long term, we want to be able to have control over what our spend is. And in order to do that, we've got to take some sort of action into managing our claims. This chart is a longitudinal study dating back to 2013, when an employer group put in an incentivized physician engagement program. This particular employer had about 2,500 employees, and you can see that implication here of their actual claims spend on a per employee per year basis. It increased over the last 10-ish years, right? But it certainly didn't increase at the rate it could have if we just said health insurance trend. And I'm sure this room is familiar with that. Health insurance costs, unfortunately, just continue to increase. And they're increasing at a rate of nearly 10%. This is outdoing that trend. And here we're only applying a 6.5% trend. So that's really the goal, is to, stop our trend line from going like this and have it be more like this. So what are we gonna do, right? Okay, we're gonna incentivize folks to get their annual physical. What's that gonna look like on a practical basis? Well, the city of Hibbing has some choices in how you construct this program. And it really boils down to these 6 different components. We've got to have requirements that are very detailed, right? We've got to roll out the eligibility. Who has to do this? Who doesn't? What's the incentive? What timeline are we going to impose? And how are we going to ensure that our program is compliant and it's communicated well to employees so that folks know exactly what they need to do? Here's the recommendation. All we're asking is that participants must complete their annual physical. When they go get their annual physical, the action that they're required to then do is have their physician sign off on a form that we will provide them that they were there. That form will then be collected by a vendor called WellWorks, who will track simply who got their annual physical and who did not get their annual physical. That is the only piece of information that provider, WellWorks, is receiving. It's also the only piece of information that will be relayed back to the city. So that's an important distinction because you're not getting information like height, weight, right? Any type of biometric information, any type of, granular health information is not being tracked. You're simply knowing, okay, hey, Lindsay went in, she got her annual physical on X date. Great, she has complied with the program. WellWorks, again, is going to track that, and they're going to provide a report back to the city of Hibbing that just says names. These are the people who participated in the program. The cost for WellWorks engagement here is $12 per participant per year. For this year, we are talking about just enrolled employees. So potentially adding spouses year 2, but we're going to take kind of the crawl, walk, run approach and ask just enrolled employees to participate in this program. And when we think about new hires, we've got to have a cutoff point. We're going to say any new hires that are hired after July 1st can be grandfathered into this wellness category. However, anybody hired before July 1st of any given year would have to participate in the program. And that is to receive that incentive amount, which is outlined at the very bottom of the screen. So we're proposing $50 per month in a premium differential. For an employee, that's going to pan out to be $600 per year. So essentially what we're saying is that come January 1, and this is going to be January 1 of 2027, employees who participated in the program will pay $50 less per month than someone who did not participate in the program. And I want to talk about that timeline a little bit here. So I said that incentive isn't going to take effect until January 1 of 2027. So we got to think a ways out here. And this slide is intended to kind of illustrate the why behind that. So this first year, year 1, we're sitting here in this summer range where we've talked about the programs, right? We've evaluated a vendor who can participate in our program for us and collect those forms. The idea is that we get approval for this and we launch it or communicate it to employees this September. We then provide employees with a 12-month period of time, beginning October 1, 2025 through September 30th, 2026, to complete that annual physical and have that physician sign-off form returned. So they've got ample amount of time to do this. And then October through December, we're deeming an administrative period. So during that time, we'll get that report back from WellWorks to say, okay, yep, Lindsay did it, Angela did not, what have you. Have those rates set up so that they can take effect January of 2027. And then overlapping that, of course, October 2026 starts the new plan year. So October 2026, we're going to introduce this again to employees and say, hey, your 12-month period is starting. Go get that annual physical again, right? Because again, this will continue into affecting January 1, 2028 premiums. So what are the economics behind this that we're talking about? Again, the biggest thing is claims and early detection of claims, specifically high-cost claimants. Our research will show that we're looking at about a 3 to 5% cost avoidance annually on any health and RX or pharmacy claims. So just to tie a dollar to that, $100,000 plus per year for the city of Hibbing based on historical claims data. And again, that's a compounded effect, right? Because health insurance costs are not going down. So we're really talking about a long-term play and starting to reduce your overall and long-term healthcare spend trend. Cost for the city of Hibbing is gonna be that $12 per participant per year to have WellWorks administer or collect the forms for our program. And then we've got some discretion on how we structure that incentive. So we can make that incentive cost neutral and charge, and by doing a cost neutral approach, essentially we would charge people who don't participate in the program more. Or if we want to take the approach where we were going to discount premiums for those who did participate, then we'd have the cost of that incentive. I tried to keep it brief, but no, I said a lot. What questions do you have for me?
Thank you so much for that presentation, counselors. It was very informative. Any questions you might have?
I think the one point that kind of stood out was having the participants that are not doing their annual checkups being charged more. I don't know if I fully like that part of it. I think you should be rewarded for doing it, not penalized for not doing it. But that's my only input. But other than that, it's a good program. Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you, yes.
is there a required number of participants for us to stay in the program? Like, do we have to have a certain percentage of the entire insured body? No?
Nope, WellWorks will only charge us for those that participated.
Okay.
So that $12 per member per year is only if they submit their form. There isn't a minimum.
Awesome.
Yep.
I did have one quick question. So with this process, it's a very manual process. They have to get the form, bring it with them, get their doctor to sign it, and then, I'm guessing, fax it in or mail it into somewhere. And then how will they be notified that that's been completed? I think that process, is there a way that it could be just because we're self-insured, that we would see that they've taken their physical, and then it's an automated process?
It's not an automated process, and Lindsay, I'll let you touch on it in a second. We did a demo with them, and there is an electronic version of this as well, that you can just scan the QR code, and right when you're in the doctor's office, they can fill it out, and then WellWorks verifies it. Lindsay, are you able to speak any more into that, the digital process, and how it's kind of seamless for employees?
I'm sorry, Angela, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm gonna turn off my video and see if that helps, and maybe
Okay.
stop sharing.
The question, Lindsay, was about administering the form, so being burdensome, having to print a form, bring it to the doctor's office, scan it in, and then how do they know that they've completed it? Again, I know that there is an electronic way to do that, but are you able to speak to it any further, working with this company in the past?
Yeah, yep. So employees are going to have options with the form. So they can certainly, be provided a PDF, print it, take it to their doctor and have them sign off, and then, do the same thing reversed, right? Like scan it in and upload it. We can even do a mail option if they want to mail a paper copy. On the flip side of that, we've got a totally digitalized option where an employee can actually just take the form virtually to their doctor and have their doctor sign off on it on their phone and submit it right there through the WellWorks website. Options in between that are things like, taking the form via paper, taking a picture of it, and then uploading it to the WellWorks website. There's QR codes involved, and all of that will be laid out to employees in kind of a welcome kit to the WellWorks platform, so they know all of the options that are available to them and can really do what's most convenient for them and their provider.
Thank you.
Any other questions, counselors?
Just to reiterate, if you participate, you get $50 a month off your premium. If you don't, it stays the same?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, so it's all participating members on the VIBA 12 or 2400 plans, including retirees. That first year, again, the intention would be only to track employees. If they participate, a $50 reduction in their premium, yes.
So then if somebody has a family plan, does every member of the family have to participate?
The first year, it is only the employee or the retiree
Okay.
themselves. You cannot require child dependents, even if they're over the age of 18. We do have a thought process of implementing spouses and potentially increasing that benefit if we do that in the second year.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you, Lindsay. We have presented this information to the insurance committee, which involves all of our bargaining units. There is support to move forward with this, although we don't need to bargain this. We did want to involve them and make sure that employees would be interested and willing in participating in something like this before we put in the effort. There very much seems to be interest in it. So next steps on my end, I actually meet with Lindsay on Monday to talk about a contract with WellWorks. And I am hoping to bring to you just via the consent agenda at the next regular city council meeting on August 6th, a contract and then the terms outlined in there.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cleffman.
Thank you.
You bet. At this
Thanks, Lindsay.
time, we'll move on to contract with Gun and Marksmanship Club. Do we,
I'm taking that, Mayor.
okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Sepula, you'll be handling that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I know that we had Dan Rebrovich from the Gun Club here at the last council meeting, and he talked about that he wasn't happy with the way that the negotiations were going. We did have discussions, I mean, among ourselves with our attorney, and then with Jim Fetzik and Jason Hansen. Neither of those two had a problem with the agreement. At this point, I mean, we don't charge them user fees. We know that they have not filed 990 forms. We don't charge them for sanitation or snow removal, lead mitigation, no well cap or septic removal. The ownership of the property is the city of Hibbings, and I know that there was discussion that it isn't the city of Hibbings, that when it moved from Bunker to where it currently is, that it was given to them, but it's always been in the city of Hibbings' name, and we don't have any documentation that it's in any other name. The permission to add extra buildings, we don't, that was a little unclear. We know that there's one building permit out there for sure. And so, you know, at this point, we want to make sure that we don't like have more buildings brought on, especially with where they feel that we're going to take the buildings away, which we're not. That they want us to compensate them for the buildings. Well, we don't need the buildings. Initially in the contract, it stated a 60-day time period for them to get their buildings off, and we offered to make it to 180, which seems more easier for them to get the buildings off in more time. We don't have, but we'd like to add an annual fee for using the property. Right now, they don't pay us anything. With all of our other user agreements, everybody pays us for their use of our either land or building or rooms, ice, everything like that. So, I mean, do you have any questions about that? I know we had Dan speak, and, this is where we're kind of at this point after having conversations with them. Do you have any ideas?
Has Mr. Arola sat down with them again with any of their concerns? Has there been any other negotiations after he spoke before us in open forum regarding some of their concerns?
I can't answer that because I was out of the office, so
Okay.
I can't answer.
I mean, I guess I feel that it should occur because I think he had legitimate questions. I'm not siding on one side or the other. I know length of contract was another thing, and rollover contracts. I know we're trying to be consistent. Mr. Krasinski, I know, has given direction, as has previous councils, to update all our contracts and be consistent as we move forward. So I was just wondering, I think additional talks should occur before a final decision is made. I mean, I think we need their support. I agree, Mr. Fetzik has spoke to me and said he's fine with it. Mr. Hansen, I think, has. So we are definitely not trying to take anything from Marksmanship Road and the gun club and their group.
Exactly.
They've provided a heck of a service for many, many people, not only from Hibbing, but our whole region, regarding gun safety and the clubs that they incorporate.
And-
Mayor?
Oh,
Yes.
go ahead.
I was just gonna chime in just a little. The concerns I heard Mr. Revovich state was the 60-day notice.
Yep.
And then the whole provision with regard to 180 days to remove their buildings.
Yep.
And so I did do a little research, and my research got to Nick and Greg before Mr. Revovich spoke, but, so, the dates, the timelines that we set, I'm fine if those are moved. I like the structure of what is being proposed, only because it has a roadmap as to what happens if the agreement ever comes to an end.
Right.
So I think their contention was, well, let's just take this whole paragraph out about whether we have to move the buildings or not. If you do that and agree to that, you are essentially kicking the can to arguably a court fight later.
Right.
Because I think the argument will be, well, we should be compensated for those buildings because we put them there and we did all the work on them. And now there's nothing that says that they're theirs or ours. My research is typically, if a tenant puts something on there, it's usually not the tenant's, unless the buildings are designed specifically for a kind of use. Well, I think these buildings are designed for shooting. I mean, I think they're designed that way.
Right.
So arguably, they have a better argument, and that's why the agreement, as Candy said, we want them to say that they're theirs.
Right.
The problem is, though, well, they essentially want an unlimited amount of time to remove their buildings. I think Mr. Revovich's comment was, we could never move them in 6 months. I don't even know if they've checked. I think that they just never want to move. And I don't think there's any plans to have them move. So if your time frame's changed, you want to give them more time, that's entirely up to the council. But I do like the idea of somebody designating at the end of the game, if it ever went south, okay, these are your buildings and you have a certain window of time to eliminate them. Otherwise, they become the cities and we could knock them down because we don't really want the buildings. We're not going to run a gun club probably from there.
So what I heard you say, Mr. Moreland, was that if they should come to a conclusion that they're shutting their clubs down, that's where the 180 would come into play. You have 180 days to move your buildings. You know, it got twisted in that we're asking you to move the buildings, but it's what I just heard you say, if they should dissolve their clubs.
So, and Mayor, it is, the way it's worded, it's broader than that. Obviously, if they dissolve their club, yes, if they're not occupying it, using it anymore, then there's no reason for them to have control. They should give it up. The provision goes both ways the way it's worded right now. If a term ran out and for whatever reason it wasn't renewed, or if somehow they defaulted, or the city gave them a notice. So if the city wants to give them more than a 60-day notice to say we want to end this deal, that's up to the council. You know, you can build in whatever time frame you want. But if it comes to an end, they're your buildings, but you take responsibility for taking them away if you want them taken away. And if you don't take them away within the time frame, then the city has the right to say, okay, well, you must have forfeited your rights with regard to these buildings, and the city can do whatever they need to. I don't want the city to get roped into transporting these buildings somewhere else in the future for this group. And then if the building is damaged or structured, then the city's on the hook for that too. Because if everything went south, that's the concern I have. So I like the structure that we have.
Right.
Just so and again, if you need to build them bigger timeframes for them, that's fine. Again, I don't think anyone's trying to kick them off. It's just so we know where the end would be, rather than fighting that in court over where the end would be.
No, and I understand that, and
Yeah.
that's why I guess I felt there should have been more negotiations to come to a conclusion of something that we could move forward on and vote on.
I'm not aware of anything that's happened between when Mr. Revovich spoke and tonight.
Yeah.
I'm not aware if Nick had a chance to meet with Mr. Revovich or anybody else since then.
So do the buildings have an appraised value? And where are they on their 990 form and the depreciation and all that kind of stuff? Do we have any of that information?
I don't think we have any
They're
information
not our
like that.
buildings.
The deed I saw with regard to the property was a 1982 deed from Hannah Mining Company to the city for $1. So I think Mr. Urvich represented, well, the city might be the owner, but it was kind of a handshake deal. And that might very well be true because it was gifted to the city. But it is the city's property, so.
Okay. 1982 for $1 is what you said.
Yep, 1982 for $1.
Any other questions for Candy?
What kind of fee do we want to charge them? Excuse me.
You know, that would be something that we'd have to discuss with them. I mean, all of their buildings and everything lies between, or among 4 40-acre parcels. So we have 160 acres there, but it lands right in the middle of all of them.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's been even, we've not really discussed that yet because we couldn't get to the end of a contract, you know, without talking about fees.
Well, based on the contract that was put before us before, that was then disputed, there was no mention of cost. That was the one that I think Mr. Rolla presented to us. So is this something now in addition to what he had already worked out with them?
No, I think how this all started was I think they feel that they're being kicked off, and that's not the case. But we kind of went through the things that they're not paying for where other users are. So it wasn't ever, we're charging you. But I mean, that could be there if we needed it to be.
So that's nothing that's been discussed, that's just an opinion that you just said.
Correct.
Okay.
But to be fair and equitable with all of our other user groups, everybody else has a contract that has been signed.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
think a contract
understanding.
is
Right,
important.
right.
Yep.
Yep.
So, and that's why I was asking after sitting down and listening, or when he came before the council, did Nick. There were some key points that he asked, and I think we asked, what are your key points? Which were presented, were they further discussed, that's all.
Right.
And, you know, and not that they would change, or could they change, that's undetermined, but I just think there should have been some more discussion so that we can come to a conclusion on this. Because this is our last contract out of like 19
Right.
that we need to get finalization on.
And I think that at this point, it was being brought up tonight, just kind of, you know, talking about it
Yeah.
after he came here.
All right.
You know, which way do you want us to go? And so we'll make sure that we reach out to them again.
Yeah. Tyler, you use as police, our police force, they use it, correct?
Correct.
And there is no fee for your police to use this facility for your training and shooting, is that correct?
Yep, so our understanding is that if we have to use it for our qualification portions of it, we have to contact them to arrange a date and time.
Right.
So that we don't interfere with any of their other programs
Right.
that they have. But and this is not just only for our department, but it's for the sheriff's office, it's for other agencies in northern Minnesota. I know they use that facility quite a bit, and I can go at any point in time while I'm working, I can go onto their property, use it to shoot or to become more proficient in shooting, and that's open for everybody in law enforcement.
Right.
But
So
if
it's
we,
a service they provide.
correct,
At no
and we
cost.
can, yep, and we can use the pistol range, we can use the rifle range, we can use the longer distance range.
Right.
And they don't question, if there's 25 of us out there during the day, we do reserve it just for our annual qualifications. But yeah, there's no fee, they don't charge us, they just make sure that we're good house guests, clean up
Right.
our brass, clean up our stuff.
All right, thank you for that information.
And Mayor?
Yes.
So, just so we're clear, we were just talking about that they don't pay fees and they don't pay like garbage and all of that.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
okay.
Yep,
I don't want there to be like something
No.
that comes
Yep.
out of that, especially when our departments use it.
yep, very good. All right, anything else? Any more questions for Ms. Sepulveda? All right, we'll move on then to surplus land purchase.
Mayor, can we let Deputy Chief Schwerzler go next?
Yes,
Okay,
yep.
okay.
So is that on animal intake?
No.
No, okay.
This is the stuff with Mr. Pachovnik.
Oh, very good.
Sure, I'll take the animal intake. I have a solution.
Keep it to yourself.
Yeah, there's a round table, they're gonna bring it up.
Oh, it's on the round table, okay, very good.
John's still on his game.
I guess.
And I will apologize, I have about 5 minutes and I can go, so. Thank you. Somebody accept
I'm trying to find a good spot for some of my stuff here. All right, so over the last couple of years, we have used the same process to clean up blighted or nuisance properties. We use mainly our ordinances, which we had enacted roughly in 2020 to 2021. We've updated them to 2023. During that course in time, we found different speed bumps or roadblocks that have not allowed us to adequately enforce the ordinance as the members of our community have wished, or even us as the people trying to enforce them have gotten compliance with the ordinance and the way that it's been drafted. We constantly, these ordinances and laws and rules are always constantly evolving. And so in the most recent time, granted, I can't speak for every situation or every specific situation that we've handled for blight, but it seems to be that there is more of a movement away from law enforcement taking the initiative to clean these blighted properties and moving them more towards dangerous buildings and or administrative search warrants. So there is a couple of exceptions when we are getting into the blighted properties that we can utilize from the code enforcement side of things, law enforcement and fire. And a couple of them have been brought up in the past where it could be plain view. So let's say we see a violation or a violation is reported to us, we can go through our actual steps of trying to rectify the issue by issuing them either citations, direct communication with them, posting the property. Roughly within 14 days, we can then send them the actual notice that, hey, on this date and this time, we are going to clean your property. Once we've started to do that process, it seems like a lot of the residents have, a lot of the properties that we are dealing with, they become more savvy and have either tried to board up their property, encase it in fencing, post no trespassing signs, deny us consent to get onto the property, deny us the ability to clean it up, and some of those exceptions to where we can get on the property and clean it where there's exigent circumstances have seemed to kind of fall to the wayside because we are not getting anywhere with entering into the property. So this is just kind of a brief overview of what our current ordinances speak to or talk about, where a lot of it is the maintenance of the private property, not just specifically the abandoned motor vehicles. This does come into play a lot of the times, but it seems like the abandoned motor vehicles are a little bit easier to rectify, even though some of our residents don't like the solution. As long as they are currently registered and parked in a certain area, it seems to come into compliance. Not saying it's a great solution, but there's a lot of the times where it falls out of our enforcement for our ordinance. So a lot of these situations with our enforcement procedures, and I just kind of have it up here somewhat in place. The last kind of paragraph within our ordinance, which was put in 2023, basically says that the city will make the arrangements and coordinate the resources to remove abandoned vehicles, abandoned property, garbage, grass removal, articles will be destroyed, salvage value, blah, 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 and so on. So they're basically, within our ordinance, it's kind of telling us how we can handle the enforcement procedures. Well, it doesn't necessarily coincide with a warrantless search or a warrantless seizure of the property. So it's kind of conflicting to us, where we don't necessarily feel that from a law enforcement or from a code enforcement standpoint, that we're actually getting the compliance that our residents are looking for. So I'm trying to propose a possible different solution to help with this issue, including Mr. Puchovnik's. So this is just a brief rundown of what we utilize as our ordinances. It doesn't necessarily, it's not all encompassing, it doesn't show you everything within our ordinances. Throughout the time of the last couple of, probably 5-6 months, I've done quite an extensive research into the hazardous substandard buildings, public nuisance, administrative search warrants, which are not a criminal solution, or not a criminal resource, it is a civil resource. So one of the solutions that I feel like I've come up with here is that under the 463 chapter for statutes, basically under building and the substandard buildings, what I've found through the League of Minnesota Cities is under subdivision 3 here, where it's talking about hazardous buildings and hazardous properties. Hazardous buildings or hazardous property means any building or property which, because of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, physical damage, unsanitary conditions, or abandonment, constitutes a fire hazard or hazard to public safety or health. Under this clause, I feel that we, from a municipality standpoint, can follow through with a injunction that is filed through city council. So what we can do, and what I'm proposing, and I have a flow chart that I can go into a little bit more detail with, the printed off version didn't necessarily work. Basically what we can do is, if we are denied the ability to enter into someone's property, what I'm proposing is that we will do a presentation to the council. We will explain the process that we have taken step by step, show you photographs, show you dates, times, locations, communication with either the property owner or the renter. And granted, we will have already tried to take all of the steps to get to resolving it without bringing council in. So there is exclusions for us that we can utilize, not just from the police department, but also from the fire department. So basically, this step would be, we've exhausted all of our resources, and now we are asking the council to review our case and then move forward with putting at least a letter that I've kind of drafted already, and you'll see it, a recommendation for Mr. Borland to file some form of injunction or a lawsuit in the court system against the person. So basically, the abatement procedure would be something that I'm looking for to get added into our ordinance. We'll go up here. Now this does not, this is basically the way that I'm describing it is we've exhausted all of our resources. We are no longer able to go forward without any further council action. So looking through a lot of the hazardous buildings and stuff like that, the abatement procedure here is kind of as described. Basically, I would bring you a case, I would present it to you, or code enforcement, or the fire department, or building and housing even, where it would basically, we would present it to you, and then it would fall on council to make the decision and determination if they would like to move forward with the cleaning or the process that goes from the next step. And so basically, there's just some wording and some kind of just a wording and changing at least to the ordinance that I would like to see at least be put in place. Some of this doesn't necessarily deal with the actual blight ordinance itself. It deals with other portions of the building stuff, but I believe we have the ability to utilize this. So this just kind of roughly will be like an outline of what I've come up with for a letter to the council. So basically, it cites all of our date, time, code enforcement information, properties, our city ordinances, kind of a background, date and time of actual violations, what we've actually attempted to do, a brief summary of it, and then basically at the recommendations at the end of it, after we present our whole case, it would just basically, with a request of the council, just due to the continued non-compliance and the adverse impact of the blight on the neighborhood's safety, welfare, property values, and overall quality of life, Code Enforcement Department recommends the City Council authorize the City Attorney to initiate illegal proceedings against the property owners. to compel the compliance of the city's blight ordinances, recover costs incurred for the city, and pursue any other legal remedies deemed appropriate, including the placement of liens on the real estate for the abatement expenses. So basically, this would be at the end of it where I would come in from a council standpoint and say, hey, this is what code enforcement did, this is what blight did, this is what the police department has tried to do. We are at every roadblock, we've exhausted everything. Now, forgive me for this little flow chart because it might be a little bit hard to read or maybe difficult to understand. This is my first time using some form of flow chart via AI, which was actually kind of cool. And I don't know how clear it is or we're able to read it. Might get distorted a little bit. So this would be just kind of like a rough outline for the flow chart. Not everything is in order or where I'd like to see it to be, and I feel like we can move that around, but it just kind of gives you a little bit of a visual kind of idea of what we're doing. So blight's identified, we've gone through the whole process, we've confirmed it. I'd like to move down into here. We would go through and schedule the cleanup process. Would they be willing to voluntarily clean up their property? Yes or no? If yes, they have a date and timeline for their process. If they don't, we will go out there, we'll do a follow-up inspection of the property, which would just be basically the visual examination, still confirm that there's blight or they're in violation. They've boarded up their property, they are denying us the consent to get onto their property to clean it up. From there, basically what I would do is if we did not achieve the compliance, I would come back up to here where I would actually have the city council review the case. You guys would make the order or the determination if we were gonna move forward with it or not. And then we would go back into the initiating the legal action and then just kind of a rough outline of what legal actions we could take. Now, the fines and criminal charges is not going to rectify the specific issue that we have out in Kelly Lake, where I would say from what we've seen and what we are doing, we are recommending that we seek some sort of court order for compliance through the hazardous buildings or hazardous properties. Ultimately, I feel like this process has a better chance of success for people to either come into compliance or we force them to come into compliance. And like I've said before, we're seeing properties that we are cleaning up to 4 times already in roughly a 5-year period of time at an astronomical rate of cost that we may never potentially recover. And I think by trying to utilize different avenues and different resources in the court, I think we're going to be more successful in a shorter turnaround and cleanup. And then also too, it gets council vested in the actual process of this. I know a lot of the times council turns to me or to Alyssa or to the fire chief, hey, what's going on with this property? And I feel like if we get to that point, this is a perfect example of we're bringing it back to you. Here's the presentation, and it'd be 5 to 10 minutes long. Wouldn't be even as long as me sitting up here explaining it. We would show you line by line all of our violations and where we're at and what we're asking for the next step to be. So.
Tyler, I guess I'll speak first. I appreciate your effort and research and the flow chart that you just provided on getting from A to B.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've included Mr. Borland or will as you move forward and set up the structure. Finding a solution, I think is really important because of how important blight is getting cleaned up within our community. I do want to say a lot of our blight, there has not been the resistance, so we have been able to go in and help people clean up their properties.
Yep.
But there are those, of course, that we need other options. And I would assume that as we move forward with our rental property assessments and stuff with absentee landlords, because a lot of this falls within that,
correct,
that we could probably prevent some of this before it even happens as we move forward.
Yes.
So, but I just want to say, I think you did just a great job of finding a solution or a way forward to clean up our community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and a lot of the administrative search warrant stuff, that is non-law enforcement related. A lot of that, the research I did touches on rental inspections, touches on fire inspections. A lot of the other rental codes and also blight codes all seem to come back to the administrative search warrants. If I could figure out a way to file them and do them myself, I would.
Right.
But it seems like there's no direction from the league to who can apply for these or who should be doing them. It all refers back to your city's attorney. And I think that seems kind of redundant. We shouldn't have to, especially coming from a criminal side of things where I apply, I draft, I apply, I get the search warrant granted, I execute it from a law enforcement standpoint. Well, why can't we have code enforcement or people that are knowledgeable or trained into the actual process of doing that, and then that we can just go out there and enforce it? Because I have a feeling we have a workforce that's ready to do this from the last over the 5 years, and it seems like it's just roadblock after roadblock.
Right.
So,
Very good. Counselors?
I have a question.
Yes.
So again, I will echo what the mayor had just said about your effort and in your hard work on this. Will this help us then in the courtroom for a better resolution? Because I think one of the last times with the judge, they interpreted it this way, and now you have all this data and all this supporting documentation. Will that help us at all, do you think, moving forward?
Counselor Hopkins, it's a little bit apples and oranges. So the warrant that Tyler tried to draft, and I helped him draft, that we submitted to the court, was to get access to that property. What Tyler's doing here is, at least part of it anyway, when he described the property in Kelly Lake.
Right.
So my anticipation, assuming we're gonna try this ordinance, is that somebody, whether it's Tyler, whether it's Pat, is going to be able to say that the condition of that property is hazardous to the public, maybe even to the individuals that are there. The fastest way that I'm aware of that we would do then is the same thing we do for dilapidated buildings. I would anticipate at the next meeting, I would have an order for the clerk to sign, because the abatement statute that Tyler references is the abatement statute for a hazardous building. It's the same statute. So I would have an order for Candy to sign, assuming the council says yes, to say this is a hazardous, dangerous situation. And if she signs it, then we serve it on the owner and the tenant, the occupant. And they've got 30 days to clean it up. If they don't, then I'm going to court to get a court order that says we can clean it up. And they've got to come into court to fight me on it. That seems like a long time, but as compared to bringing an actual lawsuit against them and playing that over time, that's not that long a period of time to get something done. So I think for property like that, that's what I'll have for your consideration at our next meeting.
Okay, good, thank you.
So that order then would get served, and it would put the burden on them. If they want to fight it, they can, but they've got to come to court and fight it.
Right, but I guess I was pretty disappointed to hear that the judge, just interpreted it this way and that was it. I was just.
In my opinion, she was dead wrong, because she interpreted it as a civil ordinance only, and there's criminal provisions that reference that. She didn't see it that way, but there are clearly criminal references in our ordinances that tie this exact problem in the blight to it being a criminal sanction, which is why if they don't pay their tickets, Tyler turns them over as a criminal charge, and we proceed that way. If that wasn't there, we couldn't do that, so.
Okay. Well, good, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for all your
Counselors,
work.
any other questions?
My one question was, what do you ballpark the timeline of,
Oh.
here's the blight problem, Andy gets him into court, like,
well, I feel like you're gonna at least have, so this would be, I wouldn't say it's gonna be a unique situation for us, because of the reason why I did all of this research was because of that property out there in Kelly Lake. I still feel like we're able to enforce our actual blight ordinances through the exceptions for warrantless searches on other properties. So this one I think is going to be a little bit unique to what we are trying to accomplish. And I can't give you a specific timeline But just from the way our ordinance is written on blight, it's gonna be a minimum of 14 days before we'd even bring anything to, under this philosophy or this style, it'd be a minimum of 14 days before I would bring anything to council, or we would be ready to bring anything to council. So from that 14 days, you're probably looking at another month to 2 months period of time where we're still hoping they're going to come into compliance. Timelines are tough.
Yeah, I mean, when I deal with it at my job, I mean, usually 3 months is
Yeah.
a reasonable guess to get
I would hope to have,
something done.
if we enforce the ordinance the way that it was designed and we are able to have the resources and manpower, I would say we would be in under the 3 months. With this new process, I don't have anything that I could gauge it. If 3 months is good, if we hit 3 months, I think I'd be happy with that, considering we've gone
I
so
would
many
be
months
too,
without.
through all the stuff I've done. That's about what it usually, when you
Yeah.
don't get any trouble and you're able to successfully get through it. If you start in the end of May and
Yep.
you got it done by September, you probably did a good job.
Yeah, I'm hoping, I'd love to see a 3-month turnaround. Anything under that, I'd be happy.
Okay, any other questions? I just love that we're not treading water anymore and we're actually moving ahead. So thank you again, Tyler,
Yeah.
for,
Not a problem.
all right, we'll move on to surplus land.
I'll be
Purchase.
taking that.
Huh?
I'll be taking that.
All right, Ms. Sepulveda.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, in December, we had a surplus land policy approved, and we've had multiple people talk about different properties that they've wanted to buy if they're adjacent to their homes. We do have one that we as a city don't need, and you know that we've received them over the past, just for them being tax forfeited and stuff like that. And I know that that has changed, where we don't just acquire them that easily anymore. But this one is in the 2900 block of Fifth Avenue East, and the adjacent homeowner has been keeping it up, cleaning it out. There's been things that were like buried in the property. What we're looking for is just to find out if we could go into some type of negotiation with him. He came in and talked with Greg a couple weeks ago, and I've spoken with him a few times. Betsy has spoken with him a few times, and we spoke with Tina Glad, and she let us know that the 2 parcels that are adjoining his property are located on the 2900 block of Fifth Avenue East. The parcels are adjacent to each other and are located in the R2 residential, 1 to 4 family resident zoning district. So the properties are both legally non-conforming. If the 2 parcels were combined together, they would be large enough to build a small house, but there's so much that's underground that if this homeowner wants to take that on, they're oddly shaped, so it's not really a large lot. The irregular shape and the location of these parcels would make sense to sell it to the person next door. So just wondering if we can go forward and then bring it back to you once we've negotiated with him, and maybe get that off of it would get onto then the actual tax roll, because right now there's no tax being.
Candy, is there any intention of what he'd like to do with this property other than just acquire it as lawn, or?
He actually talked about a garage. He talked about what he could do with it.
Okay.
So that would be.
What is the width of the lot?
I believe it is 52.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 properties.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, very good.
Yeah.
Counselors, any other question?
Anything ever on that?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Was there ever anything on that?
There was a home there in the past.
Oh,
Yep, and then it ended up back in our.
Is that something we had taken down? Do you know if it was part of our
Yeah, we get-
removal?
I believe that it did come partially. A lot of it is in the ground.
Yeah, well, that's usually they leave the basement,
Right,
yeah.
right.
But a garage would, that's surface, so it's
Correct.
pretty easy to do that.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for Candy on that? All right, hearing none,
Okay.
we'll move on to animal intake update.
Perfect. Mayor and council, we have Alyssa with us tonight. We've talked about, this is gonna kind of be a two-part
Yep.
conversation, but Alyssa has been working on part of the ordinance, so I'll just hand this part over to
Good evening, Alyssa.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you. So our goal was to kind of change how the ordinance states about picking up an extremely large number of cats that we have seen coming through the city. So I kind of been working on some different ways to kind of maybe like make it not be so where the police have to go pick up everything that they get a call on. So I don't know, do you guys all have copies of
Yeah,
it?
Yes, we do.
So yeah, if you guys just want to look through and just see, just kind of like, all the points should be there on like what I'm kind of proposing, should be changed to kind of help with that, stray cat ordinance that we have.
And then mayor and council, what we will do is, when we have our legal meeting with Andy, we will combine what we've talked about internally and what Alyssa has put together and come up with a really good plan for our animals that we would be picking up or not.
Okay, so.
so to boil it down, we'll have more space if we don't pick up every cat.
What's that?
I said we'll have more space if we don't pick up every cat.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we just had 37 in at one time, and we keep getting them in. I mean, calls all the time on them. I know the CSOs today just contacted me and said, do we have room for some cats out in Country Estates? There was like 2 older cats that they think are about 2 to 3 years old and like 8 to 10 kittens. The guy said that they were feral, but he had them in his house or something because he finally caught them all. There's just an extremely large number of feral cats in that trailer park in itself. So this would kind of help us not to have to pick all of those stray feral cats up especially, so.
You know, and as I mentioned last time, that we talked about this in talking with Grand Rapids, and I just happened to stop in there yesterday because I was in Grand Rapids at their animal intake, and because of how they have limited their cat intake.
Yep.
They are not, you know, well, as you mentioned to me when I asked that question, a week ago or 2 weeks, whatever, 75% of our intakes is cats.
Yeah.
Versus dogs.
Yes.
And I do think moving forward with a little more control on what we bring in and out in is really, really important in the benefit of how we manage our intakes.
Absolutely.
Yep. And actually, at this point, our ordinance does not require us to pick up feral cat,
Yep.
stray cats.
Yep.
But, when they come to you, a lot of times they're somebody's, so, it's, it's easy to pick those up, but I know that the CSOs and Alyssa and our police officers have picked up some that they're not that nice. And so, like, you sometimes have to, I don't know, almost wrestle them to get them in the kennels to get them to the shelter. And
So then would this be on the agenda at a next city council meeting to?
well, once we meet with
actually
Attorney
meet with your-
Borland,
Yeah,
then
okay.
we'll.
Yep.
Then we'll do
Yeah.
that. Okay. Perfect.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions?
So if I can just keep Alyssa up for
Yep.
just a minute here, thank you. So since you authorized us to be able to adopt out animals, if you just want to let them know where we're at.
Yeah, so I have a dog that is being adopted out tomorrow. We have calls almost daily of people wanting to set up appointments to come see the dogs that we have. I think in the last week, I think I sent an email out, I'm not sure if you guys all got it, but I think it was One dog went to rescue, another one was adopted, a potential adoption on one tomorrow. 4 cats are going to Let Love Live on Friday. Precious Paws took 6 of our kittens, so like we're pretty, I hate to say, but we're pretty low on numbers right now. It's a comfortable number for staff out there. So they're moving and getting calls about all of the animals daily now that we're able to advertise on Facebook and have that out there, so.
Thank you.
And it's really nice to have them make an appointment with them,
Yep.
just because of cleaning, trying to get the animals
Yep.
out, and however many people we have working out there. They've really been doing an amazing job, so
Yes.
I really thank them for that.
A
Yes.
question, because it's related to this, we went out for RFPs,
Yes.
and where are we sitting with that right now?
So we've received 1 RFP.
Oh, I thought we had 3.
I reached out to the 3 that were sending them, and one just said their board was very split. The other one, she didn't have a 501c3 in place. And so Range Regional Animal Rescue is the only 501c3, the only RFP we received. So we will meet internally and discuss, and then possibly interview them, and then come back to the council with where we're at.
All right, I appreciate the update, because it's
Nice
pertinent to us.
Thank you.
And Alyssa, would you just let them know, so the community also knows how many cats, how many dogs we have left right now?
I think we have 20 dogs right now. That includes 7 puppies. I'm hoping that a couple that we got in our owner pickups. So 20 dogs and 25 cats right now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on to the 400 block redevelopment update.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here before you tonight to chat a little bit about the presentations and work that has been done with the Hibbing Economic Development Authority Board on the 400 block redevelopment project to date, and give you a little bit of an update and ask for any of your additional questions, concerns, or comments and input on the project and the process so far. In front of you is a side-by-side project summary spreadsheet of both of the developers who have presented to the EDA board so far. The first project is presented by the Kilburn Group and City Hall Commons. It's a 6-story building with 108 parking stalls, 12,000 square feet of retail space, 89 senior co-ops. The gap or public subsidy required for this particular project is anywhere from $6.23 million to $8.9 million, plus additional tax abatement for all 89 units for 20 to 25 years. And I don't have an amount on what that cost would be. The residential unit cost is to build $370,000 per unit. The retail and the parking costs are built into the cost to build the residential unit. So the residential units, the 89 senior co-op units, will be bearing the cost to build the retail and the parking. The market support is from our Maxfield study, and they will do an additional housing and urban development market study, particularly to the site. It should fit the current zoning for the type of building because it's mixed use with commercial on the first floor and residential above. We're not 100% sure how high that will be yet, and we do have a height requirement in our downtown of 65 feet or less, so that is yet to be determined. The design standards currently, we only have concept renderings, so the developer is aware that it is a historical district and that they need to either design in keeping with the design standards, which is the brick facade, brick and masonry, or come to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a variance for the same. The requirements for parking on our ordinances say for 89 units, there's 178 stalls needed. So there is a delta of 70 stalls for parking that are needed but not accounted for yet. However, the city and the EDA are in the middle of a parking and traffic study, so this will inform that work as well. The project timeline, the developer for that project says that the start of construction would be September or October of 2026 and conclude May or July of 2028. And the total project costs right now are estimated at about $32,930,000. The second project that was presented was by Rebound Partners and Revocity. It's a 4-story building with 110 parking stalls, 17,000 square feet of retail, 56 market rate apartments. The public subsidy required for this project is $8.5 million. The residential unit cost to build is $258,000 to $327,000 per unit. The retail cost is $5,175,000. The parking is $34,545 per stall. They are also relying on the Maxfield study and will do an additional follow-up on market, on what the market will bear as far as keying in on the rents. It should fit in with the current zoning because, again, it is a mixed-use building with retail on the first floor, residential on the top. They have given us some concept drawings from Woodseth, a local architect. The zoning requires 112 stalls for a 56 residential unit, and they are planning for 110, so they're right within that. Obviously, the parking and traffic study will inform the remaining 2. They plan to start construction, if selected, in May of 2026 and conclude by September of 2027, and their total project costs are around $24,367,500. So those are 2 projects that have been presented to the EDA board. One question that came forward from the EDA on Monday night was, what is the sources and uses of where we're at so far into the deal? And you can see that I have provided that as well tonight. The subtotal of property acquisition for the block and the demolition estimates so far are at $1 million. I have one additional property that I am waiting on a quote for the demolition of the 402. My thoughts are that's going to be around $200,000. I don't have a firm price on that yet. So that would put this subtotal at $1.2 million. The pre-development costs are $150,000 allocated so far, and we're doing fine on that budget. So we would be at the $1.35 million. And the city funding into this project so far is $782,000 and outside funding of $428,312 in grants that we have secured to accomplish this task. I will be, the EDA has authorized the application for the demolition funding through the IRRR for the 402 building once I do receive the cost for that. So I will work to secure that grant, and the acquisition for that property will be the match for that. But there's no guarantee that we'll get approved for that. So just know that I will be trying to offset those demolition costs for that final building. So right now, with the city's funding involved in this at $782,000, that is something that we have an interfund loan between the city and the EDA and this project, and the TIF district that this project has been declared eligible for is what we're hoping to pay that back to the city coffers for the land acquisition and these other pre-development costs and things, so that that comes back to the taxpayer, and the taxpayer then can fund additional development projects of this type. So when you're looking at the requirement for tax abatement for either of these 2 projects, which both of them will require some kind of a tax increment or tax abatement, that full amount is not available to the developer solely, because the city, when we passed those interfund loan agreements, had agreed to return those funds back to the taxpayer to be able to do the next project. So those are some of the things that are in play as we move this project forward. So at this time, I'm wondering, what questions do you have that haven't been addressed so far? And any input as the EDA goes to a July 29th meeting, which the city council has all been invited to as well. What questions would you have that you'd like to have in front of you in order to make a good decision on that July 29th date?
Betsy, I just want to say thank you for the overview and having them side by side. In the presentation to the HEDA board, I believe the gentleman from Rebound spoke specifically regarding the market rate and that it was also workforce market rate. Can you kind of expand on that, because it's not on here, so can you kind of just touch base on that, because that seemed to be quite a strong point in his presentation.
Sure. So what he's referring to is workforce like our teachers, our nurses, our, physicians as they move into town, those sorts of things. Our young professionals need a spot to live when you first move into town and are looking around to potentially buy a house. So these apartments are not subsidized. They are not going to be using any kind of vouchers or those sorts of things. They are going to be charging market rate rents for our workforce. However, if we use the word workforce in that particular in their project description, there is a market rate potential grant that they can apply for. The city would have to apply for it for this project with the Minnesota Housing, the finance agency. So that money is appropriated each year by the state legislature for certain projects, and there is one small pot of funding that would be available for this project for that particular purpose.
Great, thank you, appreciate that.
Betsy, with both sites of a start of construction based for basically 2026, roughly starting the second half of 2026, what is our demolition timeline?
So our demolition timeline right now, I'm working with LHB to manage that project. They have put together a scope of work. I've sent that to our engineering and our building official, who are weighing in on, certain aspects of that. The intent right now is hopefully to demolish in September or October of 2025. And both of these timelines would require that because they need to start doing their designs around what the actual lot looks like and things like that.
Thank you. Counselors, any other questions?
I did have a quick question. So, it looks like both of these are obviously an apartment, but projects are both unique. One being senior co-op units, and one being market rate workforce. If one of these is chosen, or when one of these is chosen, is there opportunity for the second one to still be built in the city? Or would they be starting over with nowhere to go?
That's a good question. I can ask them if this site is particular to their project being successful. I do know that Rebound/Revocity has said that they wouldn't build a co-op, particularly in this particular spot. Like, this project is the one spot that, this project and the 400 block is the one spot that they would do this, but they would be interested in building a senior co-op somewhere else in town and have already been looking at spots for that particular project. So they would do two projects. But I haven't gone back to the Kilburn Group and asked them, would you build this senior co-op in a different spot if you're not chosen for this block? So I can do that, thank you.
Yeah, because I would think both of those projects are something that our housing market could use.
Correct. I do know too, one caveat that isn't in this, the Kilburn Group with a senior co-op and the financing that they're going after from HUD requires them to pre-sell 90% of the units before they can do the financial closing. That's why their start of construction would be a little over a year from now, because they have to do those pre-sales and then go to HUD and secure the financing. So if they don't pre-sell the 90% of those, however long that particular pre-sale takes, will drive this timeline.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so help me remember, the stats on that was like $122,000 down
Yes.
and about $1,700 for a monthly.
Correct. So
Right,
they
okay.
would have to do their buy-in is $122,500 for the senior co-op unit. And then, and that's an average, right? Because if some of them are one bedrooms and some of them are two bedrooms, the buy-in for the smaller unit would be smaller, but that's an average for the 89 units. And then the monthly fees would be $1,700 to pay for the mortgage to get from the difference of the cost of $370,000 per unit, subtract the 122, and then they're financing that $250,000. Or
That's it.
whatever the
Oh,
public
John,
subsidy
go ahead.
doesn't finance.
Question on this. So we got these two entities that are looking at this project. When it first came up, was it like, dream up what you want to put on this property and then come to us? Because that's the part that throws me off, and I'm part of HEDA, so I'm as much to blame as the rest, but I feel like they need a little more direction on what we want as a city rather than what they can supply for us, right? So, like, we can compare apples to apples, like, these are completely different projects. Like,
Correct.
of course, the money's gonna be different from one to another, so it's hard to actually look at it that way. I mean, I'd like to see if we wanna go senior housing co-op, or if we wanna go market rate, and then let's have, see numbers and see timelines and see all that kind of stuff and how it can go, because we're not comparing anything that's even considerably the same
Right.
in my eyes.
Sure.
And John,
Sure.
didn't we talk
Good
about a
question.
request for proposals and that type of a thing? Did we formally go out for that?
So, good questions, counselors. Couple of things. One, no, we did not do an RFP on this process because they approached us to propose a project. And if we do go out for an RFP, we have to actually then decide what it is we want. And right now, what the city has in its zoning is saying that in our downtown, it needs to be concurrent with our historic district and a mixed-use type of building. So what is out there in the market then as a quasi-RFP is be in keeping with our downtown. We didn't tell them that they have to build one building, they could build 3 or 4, right? But the more restriction we put onto an RFP and boxing our developers into a corner means we are then telling them what we think they can be successful with. And if they're not able to be successful with financing and selling those kinds of units, then the public subsidy required may be increasing in order to allow the developer to accomplish that. So by doing it this way and allowing our developers to come to us and say, we firmly believe that we can make this project successful in your town, hopefully the onus is on them then to prove to us that the financial gap is real and that they do have financing to do this project, instead of us sort of taking the lead on, you know, guiding them into what we think can be successful. Because right at this point, other than having some sense of the fact that we need a commercial on the first floor and residential above, I haven't done a market survey myself to go out to a consultant and say, on my 400 block, what would work here? So that could then delay our project. Even going out with another RFP to get them to circle back around and come into a more standard project could delay us, which means our 36-month window from the time we take down those buildings to declaring the TIF district could be eaten up by some of those activities. So then my recommendation, if you want to do that, it's fine, but then I would probably delay the demolition of those buildings coming down. Because my concern is we have a window on that TIF district, and the RFP and that process of bringing developers in will take up some of that time, and the developers might need that time to get all of their financing in place and do all of the things. That would be my only caveat and recommendation. I'm fine doing it that way if that's what you choose and want to do. I would just probably slow that demolition a little bit.
Betsy, I mean, what I hear here is both developers use a Maxfield study. So our Maxfield housing study has said we need senior housing, we need market rate apartments. So, I mean, basically, that's the information that we had secured and invested in to put out there that they can use for making their determination on the type of project that they want to provide to a city. Is that accurate or not?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Are you looking for like us to pick one per se, or what tonight? I mean,
It depends on what you want to do. I am interested in, to Counselor Schreiberger's and Counselor Hoffman-Sockman's point, do you want me to slow this down, not demolish this fall, and start an RFP process and kind of do that to get more apples to apples? I would like to then, of course, you know, get more information on a market study for what particularly would work at that spot. You know, because if I'm gonna send an RFP out for what the recommendation is from city staff, I don't really have that right now. So I would need to do some more work on that particular part of it. It's not that that's a bad thing, it's just, is that sort of your preference? Or are you looking to ask the developers, what do you think will be successful on that spot? And, you know, pitch us your best project, and then how can we work together to collaborate to move forward?
What I assumed you were doing tonight was letting the council update what HEDA has been seeing. On the 29th, I think it's the 29th at 8 AM, a decision from HEDA on a direction that, after all that we've listened to, that we should go. And tonight was an informative, so the council has the same information that HEDA has been looking at. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Why you brought this forward tonight?
That is correct. However, if the HEDA board chooses not to make a decision on July 29th, that is also their prerogative, right? So, at this point, my recommendation has been to move forward with the two projects as presented and look at the merits of both, and also can the city EDA and our partners, our regional funding partners, come up with the public subsidy required for either of these two projects. I don't have an amount fully on the Kilbourne Group what that total public subsidy would be required. And we haven't gone back to them and said, could you make this a smaller project to shrink that public subsidy? I don't know if those things are possible, but those are the kinds of things that you can do during negotiations if that's the project that's selected. They may say, no, we can't shrink it, and therefore, you know, that's not the project for us. Or to Councillor Fossil's point, yes, we could do that somewhere else in town. I don't know those answers. I will be asking them that.
Yeah. It just seems a lot with, I mean, between the two that are here, you got a gap of a third of the project.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems astronomically high in my eyes.
And that's what I've been seeing no matter what kind of project I approach, which is why it's more, you know, can the project shrink to make that third of the project be, you know, manageable for the city and our funding partners? Because yes, to your point, Councillor Schreiberger, right now, our TIF district will not throw off enough to do an 8.5 or a $6.2 million subsidy. We're gonna have to go to our funding partners and see what they would be willing to contribute. And if they can assist us with getting to that point. The IRRR is aware of this project, and so is St. Louis County. And I'm in conversations with them to see if they can help us close that gap.
Okay. Councilors, any other questions?
if you put an RFP out, what would you expect to get? They're not going to build a Dave & Buster's right there, or Applebee's. I mean, besides these two projects, what else? Like the old historic area and footprint of that? Like what could possibly? What do you envision that we would get for ideas or proposals to build there?
My thoughts are that we would see something similar, commercial, retail on the first floor and living above. But would somebody choose to build on half the block or, those sorts of things? I don't know. I do know that other communities have tried to build a building in their downtown with living above, or two buildings in their downtown with living above on the Iron Range. And they've all required at least a third public subsidy in order to get that project done. we're just, that's the nature right now of building in historic downtowns with, you know, the situation that we have in rural communities. So I don't know that I would get anything different back, but we may get, you know, somebody with the wish to build on one block instead of, you know, the whole, or one lot instead of the whole block. But to that point then, now we have some remnant parcels and, you know, now we have to try and find a project that would build on those.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We could be managing 3 or 4 different commercial properties. I don't know. It's speculative, you know, it's really hard for me to answer that definitively.
I think what's unique in both proposals is you're talking retail on the main level, which enhances your downtown regardless if it's a Dave and Buster's or whoever it might be. That they are addressing that they do want more retail downtown, but housing is also an issue. And it's something that has worked in many communities to have downtown housing tied in with retail. So, you know, I think both proposals are, you know, spot on in what could possibly be very good for the city of it.
And I will say, that's what our zoning requires, right? Is the commercial retail on the bottom and then the mixed, the living above. I will also note, the Rebound Revocity, they do, Jennifer and Mayor, Councilor Schreiber, correct me if I'm wrong, they said that they had to lease, or have lease up of 50%?
That was correct, that was
Okay.
their answer, because I think I
Prior
asked the
to
question.
financial closing,
Right.
okay.
Yep.
I didn't want to be remiss in
Yep.
bringing that up, because I had brought the same fact up for the other
And
one, so.
Hadn't they already been in negotiations with a potential business or whatever on the main floor?
Yeah, and while the Kilburn Group did not say that in the
Right.
presentation, I believe I've heard that they've been
Yes.
doing the same thing,
Right.
so.
Councilors, any other questions?
Any other input, any other questions you want me to answer prior to the July 29th when you all get to see the final?
We can send, if we think of something, we could send that to you.
Yes.
But do you have a deadline of when you'd want something submitted to you for additional questions? Because you'd want to return on those questions, and you want to give them enough time if there's a request.
Correct. Wednesday, end of day, the week before. I don't know what that is. Is it July 20?
23rd.
No, the July 23rd. Okay.
Yes, July
Thank you.
23rd would be.
Yep, July
thank you.
23rd, end of day. That'll give me enough
All
time
right.
to get it off to them. They've both been really responsive to questions sent their way. So I
Very good.
greatly appreciate their time and efforts throughout this.
Okay. With that, any other questions? Then we'll move on to roundtable. Thank you, Betsy.
So I had one further thing.
Yes.
Pardon me. With Mr. Arola not being able to be here tonight, he did just want me to double check in with you. We have been meeting with some funders and things around the recreation complex that we had planned. And they're asking for a little bit more refinement of the design and the programming inside that, which would require us to work a little bit more with some consultants to do that work. Nick does have some funding for professional services built into his budget that he thinks would accommodate that refinement of the design and the programming inside that building. So at this time, are you interested in us taking the next steps? Did you have some concerns that you'd want us to pause on that or come back with more information? Or do you generally approve of, at the last meeting, we signed an MOU with the YMCA to consider refining that programming, but we'll need some additional, expertise to take that programming and refine into design concepts.
So you said Mr. Rolla has the funding to do the professional
Yes.
services.
Yes.
I know when we had all of our studies and people were in here, the recreational complex was one of the top priorities, which that's why it's on our list right now, and you've been moving forward with it.
Correct.
In my opinion, I think that's the next logical step. It's not, we're not building anything, we're just trying to put the information together and secure input on how we should move forward and how it should be structured.
Yeah, I agree.
I sensed some hesitancy maybe at the last meeting to move forward with the current firm that we had employed to do that work. Was that just misread on my part, or would you like us to potentially look at some other professional services to refine the design concepts at this time?
Who, and you're referring to,
We've been working with JLG.
I guess would that be something we'd ask for request for proposal to do? I mean, I guess I'm caught off guard by that conversation or that comment.
Well, if we continue with JLG, there's not really a need to.
We're talking about working with City Hall and correct?
I'm sorry?
JLG's worked with City Hall?
No, JLG is the one that did the recreation
Oh,
complex.
that's right. Okay, I just need you to clarify that.
Yep, no worries.
We've got so much going on that I wanted to make sure.
Yep, we've had this conversation with, internally, with Finance Director Mullner, Jesse Story,
Yeah.
Nick, Greg, and just wanted to kind of get a sense of, yes, did you want us to RFP this point to move forward on this next phase of refining the design concepts? Or did you want us to continue with the current vendor that we've been working with on this?
You have no contract negotiations or
Nope, no agreement with anybody at
negotiations
this
or
point.
commitments. I think they provided the service that we need. That was an RFP that got us to that point.
Yep.
So personally, I think it should be an RFP. That's my opinion.
Yep, I agree.
Concur.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we will get that refined and probably to you in the August meetings, and then we'll continue on with the planning. Really appreciate the input, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to roundtable discussion. Tyler, we'll start with you.
Is there anything you want me to talk about?
No.
No, you sure?
No.
Just real quick, the street dance, I think we gotta come up with maybe a little bit different of a plan or approach, especially with the juveniles and the underage kids and
Okay.
drinking. I think we have to come up with something a little bit better for our community. There's points and times it was quite embarrassing.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but now I am. No, just to piggyback off of that, we do have a wrap-up meeting on Friday. So
Okay.
I did invite you.
You did?
I did.
What time?
10? So, I know we're gonna meet with the police separately and talk about what we
All
can do,
right.
but
Justin?
I'm good.
Good.
I just want to thank everyone that was actively involved on this weekend. I thought it was a great weekend overall, from Heather Matfee getting, the First Avenue Mile in, to the fireworks going off on time. I thought the parade was done very well by the chamber, and I did like the extension of the street dance. I thought it spread the people out a little bit. It's unfortunate to hear, but that does happen, and I'm glad that'll be being discussed. I do like the 11 o'clock ending. At that time, those of age can go into the bars, and if they want to continue drinking, they can, but I just thought the street dance, and there was 3 class reunions going on this weekend that really enjoyed it, and a lot of good comments and feedback that I had on our community and the festivities that went off this weekend. So it's a salute to everybody that was involved, even our vendors. The options for food and different things were just outstanding, and music. You don't see that in many street dances, to have that many options in music and vendors for food. So salute to everybody. Is that?
I'm going to just briefly give an update about Range Regional Airport, because I was going to do it under the council reports, but I don't want to slight them in any manner. So just quickly, the Delta passenger enplanements, they are up quite a bit. July enplanements, departing passengers reached 831 through July 16th, and inbound arriving passengers is at 609. So in comparison, in 2004, the July total of employments was 1,189. So year-to-date passenger employments is 6,263. And they're contributing that to the summer visitors, the class reunions, the festivals, July 4th, and the Jubilee Parade, or the Jubilee Festival as well. As we know, Barrett Zimmer was appointed or selected to the Outstate Airports representative with Metropolitan Airports Commission. Riverside Resort and Casino has just released the fall 2025 Sun Country charter schedule. There will be 3 flights going out of Hibbing to Laughlin, which will be in September, October, and December. And then lastly, capital improvements, the Airway Bar will be raised by August 10th. And is it down? Okay, so, because he just gave me this, and it's converted into a greenfield space. So there are things that are going on, and at the animal shelter, just quickly to say that the city of Chisholm has approved the land sale, because it needed to be approved by both the city of Hibbing and the city of Chisholm, so they have done that, and then they are working on an order agreement to assist with the airport for the federal land lease requirements, and they're working with their planning consultant on that.
Thank you. Great report.
Thank you.
Counselor Whitney.
Couple things, I think Tyler brought it up earlier. I've been getting a few complaints of speeders on some of our rural dirt roads. And I asked Jesse about getting speed limit signs put up, and I think he wrote you in on the email. Per statute, though they default to 55 miles an hour, but we can make them 35 or whatever. Do you know more about that?
The council could pass an ordinance to verify that specific in the speed zone and say this particular road will be designated at that.
You have to do a specific ordinance for like every road, or?
I believe you probably have to have an ordinance. You might just say gravel roads in Hibbing will be X speed unless you have a different designation.
So you could just encompass all
I
gravel
believe
roads?
that would be a simpler way to do it, right? So you're treating them all the same.
Because the residents were hoping to get some speed limit signs out there, but if it's 55, I wouldn't want to put 55 out there, and they're like, oh, I don't.
Well, I know there's a standard gravel road by the state of Minnesota, I think, on what gravel roads could be. But I agree with Andy, and that's a great suggestion. Maybe we adapt certain roads, we do reduce them. That's the biggest concern I've had calls on roads is the speed. And these are even some dead-end roads where the person leaves their house and they just punch it all the way down.
What was their main complaint of like the speed, like how fast? Like, 'cause I don't think it was 55, I think it's 50. If it's an unmarked road, it's 50. And so like, I'd hate to say, like, I wouldn't drive 50 miles an hour on a dirt road,
Yeah.
but the Day Lake Road, it's not a real high residential area.
Right.
You're gonna make it 35, that seems kinda,
The one that, one of the calls, I've had a couple calls, one was Elmwood Road, and they feel they just punched it, they were doing 45, 50 by the time they got down to the other end. And that's a dead-end road.
That's a tar road, though.
That's a tar road, but it's a dead end, it's, you know, they're coming from the dead end going towards Old 169.
yeah.
Mine were from Owens and Wagner and those kind of more, they're kind
But
of in
those are through roads,
towns.
and those are state,
Anderson, those were the ones where I was getting them on. Like, I
some of
don't,
those roads we get state support on, and some of these roads we do not. But I think Jesse has mentioned, if we bring it to them, the engineering usually helps post those.
Yeah.
That if there's concerns, they can ask to have certain roads slowed down. I mean, I look at even 39th Street where I live, and that's a school zone.
Yep.
From 3rd Avenue East to 1st Avenue is a race. If they stop at the stop sign. So,
and I had Jesse in on that email,
Oh,
asking
okay.
him, and he's the one that told me, like, per statute, it's 50 or whatever it is,
Yep.
and the council can make it
right.
30 or 35, so I don't know if that's something we would be interested in doing or exploring, or see which roads would want to fall under that envelope. The residents out there were getting frustrated with certain repeat offenders and what they felt was 40 to 50 miles an hour down those Owens and Wagner, Anderson.
Well, it is definitely a concern because all of us are hearing about it.
Yeah,
So-
okay.
And that's why I'd asked about those signs earlier, the flashing signs, Tyler. You know, do you do that first? If it doesn't help, then maybe we change. But,
And one other thing about, speaking of rural, is there been any internal discussion about expanding the blight enforcement to like Pintar?
So last week, last Thursday, we did have a meeting, and Pat had brought up a prior conversation that we had had, I think a lot of us had forgotten about, where the blight ordinance was designed to serve the center of the city, and the staffing and people were hired to specifically deal with that, where Pat was still going to deal with the rural outlying areas for the enforcement.
Yeah.
So he had brought that up in that meeting on Thursday, and he's like, I don't know where this got lost or not, but he's like, we're still handling complaints, so if you get a complaint outside of the rural service district,
Send them
it
to
him.
Pat?
Yep.
yeah, Pat has been doing that and getting the legals
Yep.
to do properties for years. He says, I've always done that.
Yeah,
So it's, our ordinance for blight control is for more urban hibbing,
Yep.
but he has dealt with rural hibbing his whole career.
So
So just reach out to him.
he had said he had actually drafted some paperwork and sent it to the residents on
Yeah, he
Pintar
said he
Road that
posted
they're-
it, and
So,
the timeline he gave for them to clean it up, I think, has since expired, and his letter, he said he would refer it to Andy. I don't know if with specifically that Pintar Road one.
I don't recall seeing it. I get a lot from Tina, so I might have lost track, but I'll make a note to touch base on Tina. I have to talk to Tina on Friday. I have a meeting with her.
Yeah, and those folks out on Pintar, because they said there used to be tracks leading out to the back part of the property, and there's kind of an encampment back there, and you guys cleared that out years ago, and they thought they want that to happen again, plus the junk up at the house and the road, and I know the people down on that end were
Yeah.
pretty fired up about it.
I will, for a meeting tomorrow morning at 8 AM, I'll get some clarification and see where he's at on it
Okay,
for you guys.
cool, thank you.
Very good.
I'm good.
Sheena? Good. Andy?
Yes.
All right. That's it. Chris?
I didn't even recognize him down
Yeah, already. No beer. Stuff that's on the property.